right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to see such a full room here. My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Ridge High School, and I have the privilege every day of working alongside our fantastic team of school counselors to my right. If we can give it up for the school counselors tonight. They put in a lot of hard work, a lot of time into making this presentation as informative, as relevant, and as helpful to you as possible. So they are a hardworking crew. Your children are in great hands with them as you embark upon this process. So welcome to the college application and post-secondary planning process. A warm welcome to you, whether it's your first time, your second time, or your third time at the rodeo. We are here to support you and to work together. Tonight's presentation is essentially in two parts. The first part is an informative slideshow, your typical slide deck. I will make sure that this is in your email box tomorrow and post it on our website so you can sit back tonight and just relax, take in the information. You do not have to worry about taking pictures of the slides or where the links are. I will make sure everything is in your hands tomorrow. The second part of the presentation is a Q&A. So this is your chance to ask the team questions. We are here to answer your questions. What I ask of you is that you keep your questions as general as possible so that they may benefit all of us here in the room as a group. Anything really specific about you, your child, and your family, you can contact your school counselor individually after tonight. A few more housekeeping things. We are recording tonight. So I will also make sure that the recording of this is sent to the senior parents and put on our website so that you can always look back at the recording for a reference as well. I do want to give a thank you to Mr. Barry, who works our pack, who helped us set up tonight, and a special thank you to Dr. Lazovic and the administrative team, the APs here, who were all present and helpful, especially today when your children sat in the chairs that you were sitting in. For the presentation that we did, the counselors did this same presentation for the students. And so all of this is not possible without all of their support. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Mrs. Ercolano, our newlywed here in the department. Yes, a round of applause for her. Otherwise known as Miss Coviello.
Yeah, I'm still going by Miss Coviello still. Eventually I'll change my name. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. So we just wanted to start off by saying we hope you enjoyed your summers, and we're so excited to be starting this year off with the senior class with post-secondary planning, college planning, and yeah, we're just excited. So thanks for coming. So some of the goals for this meeting, what we're going to be covering today, are level changes and deadlines. Oops, okay. Level changes and deadlines, 10 steps to complete the application process, how to work with your counselor, the 3 parts of the application process, and just to help your student and yourself feel more comfortable in this whole process, because there's a lot of parts to it. We're going to introduce the post-secondary planning website, and students with other post-secondary plans, four-year college is not the only pathway, so we're also going to discuss that, and I'll show the website of all the other resources that we have. So whatever path your student decides to take, we are here to help guide them. First, I'm going to show our Ridge post-secondary planning website. The link is not working. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. Good, everyone can see that. So this is a great resource for students and parents, so I encourage everyone to look through this website. We're going to be talking about the 10 steps of the application process today. So I know this will be filmed and posted, but you can also refer back to these 10 steps here on the left-hand side. It's called Application Checklist, 10-Step Process. So I'm just going to click that here. As you can see, they're all listed in order with video tutorials on each step. So it guides you through that whole process and how to complete them. Also, not just with the application checklist, we have general 12th grade planning. based on the seasons, so fall, winter, and spring, certain things to be thinking about. Some other helpful things I want to notice is college visits and workshops. I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit, but just so you can see it visually. Here are all of our workshops here, such as the annual college fair, which is going to be held soon. College rep visits, so that's where the representative from a university comes to Ridge High School, either in person or virtually, and that sign-up form is there. As well as the college workshop series. So those content-specific areas of, essay writing, completing the Common App workshop, and general questions too. So we also encourage to have students complete that form and sign up. So they can sign up on this website or their specific school counselor's Google Classroom. Some other things that I wanted to highlight is the Common Application. So this is a really helpful resource. I encourage you to just open up this tab, and while you're helping your son or daughter complete this, it goes through each section in the Common App. And like certain questions that you may not know the answer to, such as the GPA scale, if we do class rank, how to enter specific courses. Of course, they can always come to us and we can help answer those questions, but it's all here. Other things that I wanted to highlight, again, are events and presentations. Like Ms. Smith said, she's going to post that. That's where you can find also these extra videos. Oh, that's scholarships. That's financial aid. Never mind. Events and presentations. Yeah, that's where you can find that. So again, it's all posted in here. And then specific content areas like essay writing, standardized testing, financial aid like I just clicked, letters of rec, and again, other post-secondary pathways such as military and trade and vocational schools. So just take the time to look through this website. Again, it's a great resource. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, schedule changes. So, sorry. Okay, drop dates. So students can drop a course, but only in specific situations. For example, half-year electives that are happening right now for semester 1, they have until September 24th to drop that course for a study hall, not another elective. And we went over this with the seniors today and explained everything too. And then for a semester 2 elective, that's February 25th. So there's certain deadlines. And this is all located in the program of studies too, at Amendments at a Glance, in like that one spot there. Full year courses, that's October 9th, so a longer window. So dropping a course after those dates means that the W will be on their transcript, which means withdrawn. If a student wants to add a course, they can add a course in lieu of a study hall. So if they had a study hall first in their schedule, they can add it within the first 10 days of the course. So that's coming up pretty soon, next week. Level changes down. That window's longer. They have until October 23rd. So if they're in an honors class and want to go to CP, they can contact us, and then we can try to make that change pending seat availability. As well as level changes up. That window is shorter. That's coming up soon. That's September 17th, so if they want to go up a level. Again, that is pending seat availability and based if the supervisor approves that. So this is one note that we wanted to mention. So before we send any transcripts to colleges and universities, make sure any of the changes are done beforehand, because then they'll have a different transcript with courses if they change something after that. So they'll have to notify the school of that change. Okay. And then our counselor role is just to help support and guide the students and you all too throughout this process, answer any questions that they may have, and individual meetings with each student. So we're starting our senior meetings right now, and that's not their only meeting that they can have. They can just reach out to us, have them email us, and then we can schedule a meeting with them, maybe to work out some of the steps before this, or their senior meeting, like a prep meeting, to just have them stop by our office. But we do have an individual meeting with each senior, regardless of post-secondary plans. So, there's 3 types of applications. The most popular is the common application. So students are encouraged to use this specific platform because that website links with Naviance, so we can send the documents easily to schools. If you aren't aware what the Common App is, it's just an application where they add all of the universities that they're applying to in one place, which makes it easier to have everything centralized. We also have the Coalition application that is used by a limited number of colleges. Students could choose to use that, but they can let us know, just so we know what application platform they're using, as well as university-specific applications. For example, if they're only applying to 2 schools and they don't want to fill out and make a Common App account, they can just go directly to the college's website and fill out their specific application. I mentioned this on our website, College Visits at Ridge High School. So again, they can sign up in our Google Classroom as well as on that website I just showed you. These happen during school hours and usually happen in the media center. They can sign up via that Google form, and it's just a great way for a student to gain more information about a specific university, meet a representative from that school who may be reading their application. Visits can be virtual or in person, and they can bring a Chromebook, we said, if it's virtual, obviously, and then just learn more info about the college. They can just sit there and take in information or ask specific major questions if they're interested, so it's a great resource for them to sign up as. And they get a pass, so then they can just go directly to the meeting. College workshops at Ridge High School. So these are located in the counseling conference room, and specific locations will be listed on that Google form as well, but in general, there's specific content areas. For example, we have our first one September 17th, which is general application questions. And there's usually about 2 counselors that will be there in the workshop to help your student. We also have an SRAR workshop. Now it's called STARS, if anyone knows about the SRAR yet, maybe not. Okay, that's okay. We'll go over that. College essay tips and post-secondary planning, so that doesn't have to be just a 4-year school. And this one's funny, help is almost November 1st. So a big application deadline is usually November 1st for early action. This is just like any last-minute questions before their application is submitted. So they're like, help, I need help. So they come to us and we can help answer those questions. Okay, step 1, Ms. Kukro is gonna, oh, never mind. Ms. Wu is gonna start next.
All right. Good evening, everybody. As Ms. Coviello said, I'm Ms. Wu, one of the counselors here. And you guys have heard a lot of information, and I'm sure everybody, has different levels of familiarity with some of the terms and, things that we have talked about tonight. So right now, what myself and Ms. Kukro will do is we're going to go through what we call the 10 steps, which Ms. Coviello pointed out on the Ridge Post-Secondary Planning website. And we've taken a lot of time through feedback and just the years that we've been working here to kind of figure out what's the best way and the most helpful way to give you guys information and kind of streamline what the next steps are as your son or daughter, is applying to college right now. So we put together these 10 steps in this application checklist to hopefully help guide everybody as you're working through applications in the fall, because I know there's a lot of excitement and anxiety about it, and everybody's trying to get things done. So as students and you're helping them with the application completion, these are the pieces that they also need to do as they're doing that in terms of working with us and what we have to do as a school to get their information out, which is part of the applications that they're doing. So for step 1, we have the senior packet, which hopefully most of you have seen. Senior packet part A and part B are posted in Google Classroom, which your children should be a part of for their counselor. Packet Part A was due before the summer, but I know some students were still working on things and, have been submitting that information to us, which, is fine. It's definitely something we need before they are meeting with us and before we write their letter of recommendation. Part B is due September 18th. As I mentioned, this is in Google Classroom, and just to kind of give you some background about what each piece is. Packet Part A has a self-description sheet and a parent brag sheet, and the information there is something that, we as counselors will look at. Some of it we already know, some of it we might not, so we do go through that to talk to them about what are some of the important things that they want us to make sure we include in the letter of recommendation that goes out to the schools they're applying to. When we send the transcript, our letter as counselors goes in automatically, so that's separate from the teacher letters of recommendations that they're submitting. Part B is an update to the resume, which was part of Part A, and an updated college list as well with, more concrete deadlines. And then one of the pieces that's really important is the transcript release form. So that release form will allow us to send their transcript to the colleges if they're an athlete, to the NCAA Eligibility Center, or if they're applying to scholarships throughout this year. The one piece I want to mention on that is we do need an actual signature on the transcript release form. So we did tell the students today, there's a couple ways to submit it. You can print it out and then either take a picture or scan it on the phone and upload it, or we've had students drop off the hard copy in our office. So just make sure you guys are actually signing off on the form and not just typing onto the doc. Step 2 is paying the transcript fee. So this is something that if you have trouble finding the link for, which is on the Bernard's BOE website, if you go to our application checklist, we do have videos of everything just showing you where to go. But the transcript fee is $7, and what that covers is any transcript that goes out for the colleges, so the initial transcript that we send out, marking period 1 grades if they want to or need to have those sent, the mid-year report, which will go out in February after first semester is done, the final transcript to the school that they go to, and also the NCAA if they need it, and any scholarships that they apply to. So from this point forward, whenever they need a scholarship, transcript, we'll send that out. So you just have to make sure you pay that online, and then our secretaries are checking each morning to see who has paid to update that in Naviance. Some of the pieces that I'm talking about will kind of overlap into what I'll talk about on Naviance, but for our students to be able to request transcripts, we'll update that in Naviance after the secretaries have checked to see if the payment's been made. So that's just one piece there. Step 3 is updating Naviance. So one piece that students will have to do is log into Naviance, which they should all have access to. This has to be done through the student profile, so I know some parents also have their own account. If for some reason you're finding that you can't do something, it could be because you're on the parent account and not the student account, so that's something that you just need to check for. But they need to move their colleges from colleges I'm thinking about to colleges I'm applying to, or if it's not on the I'm thinking about list, they would just add it onto the colleges I'm applying to. One piece I'm going to mention too, kind of ties to the next one, is with Common App. If your schools use Common Application, you'll be creating an account there, and a lot of the information on Common App with the list of schools will update on that Naviance college list as well. So you may see schools get added on because they're on your Common App list, but your son or daughter can't delete stuff from Naviance, so if they delete it from Common App, it may not delete on Naviance, and that's something that they would just let us know. So for Common Application, if the schools that your son or daughter is applying to are using Common App, you would need to create an account on Common App, and then the pieces that we do ask the student to complete before meeting with us is to complete the education section, and if you have questions on what to write in certain parts of it, if you go back to our website and that Common Application link that Ms. Coviello showed you, a lot of the answers are on there. And then the other piece is the FERPA waiver. So once the education section is completed, students will be able to go in and complete the FERPA waiver. This is the same waiver that they are checking off on the transcript release form. So they'll be indicating, yes, they waive their right to have access to like the letter of recommendations, or no. Typically, you know, with waiving your right, it allows colleges to know that the recommendation is candid and that, you know, students didn't have access to it or any influence over it. So that's something to think about when you're deciding, you know, which to check off. Students just need to make sure they complete that, and they can't change the FERPA waiver once they select it. So they just want to make sure they're looking at what they're doing and checking off the right box. Once they do that, they will have to go back into Naviance on the colleges I'm applying to tab, and then match the Naviance account to Common App. So what they'll do is there's a little box that they'll have to enter their email address, and it will match the account. And the reason that students need to do this is because we send all our documents through Naviance, and for Common App, they have us listed as a Naviance school. So all our documents will match up with their application once everything gets submitted. One thing to note here is that there's no order that anything needs to be done in, so they can work on their applications, they can submit them, even if our transcript, our letter, or their teacher letters haven't been submitted. And, you know, vice versa. If we submit the transcript and the letters of recommendations, but they're not ready to submit their application, that's totally fine. What happens is, you know, on the school end, they go in and download the documents, and the application and all the documents should match up in the end. One thing to mention here too is if they are not using the Common App for a school for some reason, I know there are some schools that will send out information like use our application and we'll give you a fee waiver, or you don't need to write an essay. That's something that they definitely have to let us know. Naviance automatically defaults to like sending everything on Common App, so if they're not using the Common App, we have to mark that in there so that it'll get processed differently, and the schools can pull that information when, you know, all the documents are sent and the application is submitted. And for now, Ms. Kukrow will go over steps 6 through 10.
Hello, I'm Ms. Kukrow. I wanted to just echo what Ms. Wu said about the creation of the 10 steps. A few years back, we sat down as a group and we said, like, how can we best be helpful? We imagined ourselves in your seat, we imagined ourselves as the students, and we wanted to make something that was clear and concise to follow. So nothing better than step 1, step 2, step 3. So it's a roadmap for you. It was created with like such intention to make things as easy to follow as possible. And what we said to your students today when we met with them, and they were very attentive this morning and listening, and we said to them, you know, it's hard to sit in the audience and listen to someone say a lot of information, and it's hard to digest all of it, and we validated that for them. But we talked about this being a roadmap for them and for you, and a roadmap with a goal. And we said that we wanted them, when they left our presentation, I'm sure they ran right home to tell you all about it, was for them to walk out feeling more empowered with the process, because this is a big process. It's really meaningful. There's a lot of things going on. It can be very emotional. So that's why we kind of step in here with the logic, and we go step 1, step 2. You follow those in sequential order, and it makes you feel good knowing, like, okay, I did step 1, I did step 2, and you'll move through the process and hopefully feel like you're not missing anything. I know as a parent of young kids, I'm always like, what am I missing? What do I not know? So here's the way that just make sure that you don't miss anything and that you're not missing any of the steps in the process. So we're on step 6 already. So the first couple steps Ms. Wu mentioned, they're just action items. They can kind of fly through them, and they get to the teacher recommendation part. Students should have asked teachers already, would you write my letter of recommendation? If they haven't already done that, now is the time, sooner than later. They're going to be adding those requests through Naviance. As Ms. Wu mentioned, we utilize Naviance to send all of the materials. So they will be going into Naviance and adding those teachers as recommenders. I do want to mention that we do not want them to add those teachers through the Common application. There is a section in the Common app that does make it seem like they should be adding those teachers in there, but we are a school that uses Naviance, so they should disregard that in the Common application. Obviously, we reminded students to give teachers ample time to write and send. The teachers need to know what schools the student's applying to and what the deadline is so that they can be best prepared. We told them, don't tell them 2 days before, I need a letter in 2 days. So we said plan ahead and let them know and work with them and certainly say thank you for writing the letter of recommendation. One thing we do want to mention here is to check the number of letters that schools will accept. Something that you'll hear us say a lot, or the kids say a lot, is to check the individual schools' websites. Every school does something a little bit different, and when it comes to letters, this is one of those things. Schools may be very specific in saying, we only want one teacher letter of recommendation, or we want a teacher or a counselor, or we want 2 academic letters of recommendation. It is really important to follow those directions. And when they say 1 and you send 2, that doesn't look good. It looks like the student couldn't follow the directions. So it's really important to adhere to whatever it is that they want. We do get asked a lot of questions about outside letters of recommendation. I have a coach, I have someone religious, I have someone in the community, can they send? You just would need to check with the school, do you accept other letters of recommendation? They're all under other or supplemental letters of recommendation. They don't count as an academic teacher. So if you're looking at the website and you're reading the language and it says academic teacher or academic subject, that wouldn't count as us, where the counselor, that's the counselor letter, goes separately, and that would mean one teacher that they have that teaches them in an academic course. Okay, so just make sure you're looking at the language and make sure you're understanding what each school is looking for. Teachers will be sending letters directly to the colleges. I think as Ms. Wu mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts in this process. The students submitting the application, we're sending the transcript and the letter, they're doing other things, sending scores. And these things do not all happen at the same time, my gosh, that would be literally impossible. So please don't worry if things are happening at different times. But the teachers will send them directly to the colleges. The students do not get to see those letters. It'll go directly from Naviance to the individual school. Sorry, okay. Step 7, so once they've gotten through steps 1 through 6, this is really the point in time that they're ready to have their meeting with us. So once they've gotten through those steps, they are going to fill out a Google form. We've all posted that, or will be posting that in the next day or so in our Google Classrooms. And that is basically their communication tool to say, listen, I've done those steps 1 through 6, and now I'm ready to sit down with you in that meeting. Now, as Ms. Wu mentioned, and it's a really good point, and I had a couple kids come up to me after the presentation today and say, well, can I submit my applications before I meet with you? And I said, absolutely. If they want to hit submit, they are welcome to, or they can wait to meet with us. That is totally fine. But they're going to indicate that they're ready to meet with us after they've done the steps 1 through 6 by filling out that Google form that's posted in our classroom. We did remind the students today, and it's good to say to you as well, I think what we said was, there's a lot of you, and there's one of us, and a lot of you have the same deadlines, and we absolutely will meet every deadline. We have never missed a deadline, but we do have to space out those meetings. We can't meet with everybody, obviously, on the same day, and so some of those meetings are going to go into October, or maybe even later in October. But we did say, like, if you're particularly nervous or worried, just let us know, and we do the best we can to accommodate. We do ask on that Google form, what is your earliest deadline? So we try to get the students in with the earlier deadlines first to meet with them, but we promise we will get it all done, but we just reminded the students, just be patient, and if you're particularly worried, you definitely can reach out and let us know that. We did say also that if your deadline changes after you submit the Google form, so we ask for things like Part B, where we say what schools and what deadlines, and we ask to fill in the Google form, and then like people change their minds, right? Kids change their minds. That is totally fine. It does not, and I think sometimes that prevents kids from turning things in because they're like, well, I'm not 100% sure. That's okay. If something changes after you submit that Google form, you can just let us know. If the deadline changes and now it's earlier, we don't just know that. You just have to communicate with us. So a big thing that we said today to students was just make sure you're communicating with us so we can best help you. Okay. Step 8, test scores. So the important thing here is that the transcript that we'll be sending does not include any test scores. So that's the student's responsibility in some way, shape, or form, which I'm going to go over, to send those scores to the schools. The scores, if a school is asking for scores to be officially sent, meaning we need them officially, please put in the school's code, that means it needs to come directly from the ACT or the SAT website to the particular school. Okay, that's what it means to be sent officially. So you'll look and see if scores are requiring official reports, and if they are, the cost is posted there to send to each school. So it's a really good exercise to make sure you're seeing each school. Do they require official scores? If they don't say they require official scores, they may allow you to do something called self-report, which means you don't have to pay for it. So you should check and see if it's official, and if it is, you do have to spend that money per school and send them, and if not, I'm going to go over how to do the self-report. We do get a lot of questions about AP test scores, like is that part of the process? Should I send them? It typically is not part of the admissions process. It's after a student has decided where to enroll, then they would send those scores to the school. So right now, that's one less thing to worry about. AP scores really aren't part of this process. Okay, as I mentioned, a couple things with sending scores and different policies and things like that. So first I'm going to talk about test optional schools, which we may have heard of. So this is where a student can decide, do I want to send scores or do I not want to send scores? Like, it's the million-dollar question. We spend a lot of time in our offices with each student and each school saying, should you submit, should you not submit? We can definitely help with that. Generally speaking, our advice is if you are in the 50th percentile of scores submitted, you would submit or above, and if you're below, maybe not. There could be individual differences there, and the students can talk to us about that, but they can decide not to send their scores. If a school is test optional and a student is not submitting scores, it does not hurt them. They have agreed to be test optional, and they will not hold that against your student if you don't submit them. So like a lot of questions we get are, well, is it going to hurt them if they don't? Is it really test optional? And it's a fair question, but the answer is it will not hurt them. They do not have to submit them, especially if they're not going to help the application, meaning they're not in the 50th or higher. Okay, so again, that familiar phrase, check each school's website for their policy, because everybody does something a little bit different. We put that on there a couple years ago because we ran into a situation with a school that said, we're publicized as test optional, but then when you read the fine print, it said test optional, but your GPA had to be some number, 3.7, I'm making that up. So we do need to make sure we're checking that, and those things can change from year to year with schools, so we just tell kids, make sure you're looking at the websites, go to their admission page, look at their checklist, make sure you know what each school is looking for, so that you don't run into any issues there. Okay, self-reported test scores. What this means is that the student is reporting. It's not going officially from SAT or ACT, it's coming from the student. So this is where they will report the scores either on that school's application or on the STARS, which is formerly the STARS. It is a new name this year. And that is where students are inputting their information onto that particular form. So in that situation, you don't pay up front. You only would pay if your student enrolls in that particular school, and then they will ask to have it sent officially to verify once the student has enrolled. So again, check each school's website to see if they allow you to self-report. You don't need to send them officially. So you want to just check and see if that's a policy that each school has. Some schools may have self-report, some are going to be asking for official, and that's totally normal. Okay, timing to send and rush reporting. So what we typically say best practices is between 4 to 5 weeks to send scores, like to allow that time for the schools to receive the information, to write down that they have it. So we told students this morning, if you're done testing, if you know you're done and you're not taking anything else, like do that now. Check it off the list and get it done with, because it can take some time for the schools to get that information. We said to our group, imagine you're a college, imagine how many pieces of information they're receiving. It's a lot, not just from this school, but from all the schools in New Jersey and all the schools in the United States. It takes them a very long time to record everything that they have, so we just say, get out there in front of it, send it early so it's in, and that way you can verify and check to see that they have it. If you're looking in your portal and you don't see a check mark next to the SAT that you sent a couple weeks ago, it's time to follow up on that type of thing. So that's the best case scenario. Now, some students are still testing, and that is totally fine. There are September and October test dates that a lot of even November 1 schools will accept. So that is totally fine too. So a lot of schools will take those test scores even though they're going to arrive after the deadline because they are not looking at every single application the day that they're due. Okay, so again, check the websites and they'll tell you on there, we will accept the September SAT and the October ACT, or they may say something different. We do not recommend rush reporting. A lot of students ask us about that. It's an additional fee for you to send it rush. We don't recommend that. It usually takes longer for them to get there actually, and a lot of schools don't accept those reports because they come in a different format, and I don't think they want to deal with that. So we don't recommend doing that. So get out in front of that, talk to them about the plan, what are we doing about sending scores, and have that be something that you can check off your list. Okay, the last bullet says that each time a student registers for the SAT or ACT, so that's for the students who are currently registered for a September or October test score, or even November, you are allowed to select 4 schools where the scores, as soon as they are ready, go for free. So we encourage, why not? Use it. It's free. Sign up for those 4 free schools, and as soon as those score results are sent, they will be sent to the schools, and it's usually very quick. So we recommend if you're applying to a school early action or early decision, put that in the 4 and choose 3 other ones because you're entitled to do that. Step 9, request transcripts. Okay, so the only place to request a transcript from, and this makes sense, right, is the student account. So sometimes we get questions like, I don't see where to request transcripts. Okay, make sure you're in the student account. That's the most important. And then transcripts can't be requested until both of those packets have been turned. And remember, we talked about steps 1 through 10 and going sequentially through the steps, and this is why. It's just a check balance thing for us. Like I said, there's a lot of them and there's one of us, so we just kind of like to keep it in track. We'd like to have both of those parts submitted. We want to make sure, obviously, the transcript fee has been paid and that we've had the senior meeting. So again, they can be working on all the other things. They don't have to wait to do anything until they meet with us, but they cannot request the transcript until after we've met and gone over the list and kind of reviewed everything. Okay, we are asking for students to request a transcript for every school to which they are applying. Now, there may be some of those schools that are asking for students to self-report, right? They're going to ask students to input their grades and their courses as well. And you might say, well, why do they need a transcript and the self-report? The reason is that when we send a transcript, our letter of recommendation is attached to that transcript. So even a school that wants a student to type in the information, sometimes will want a letter. So it's just easier for everybody involved. For every school you're applying to, hit the transcript request. It literally is a checkbox next to each school, so it's very easy to do it all at once, and it just keeps it easy and seamless, and we don't miss sending any information. So, and then it says, in addition, if schools require self-report, you may have to do an additional form as well. Okay, step 10 is complete applications. So we reminded students complete applications by the chosen deadlines. We did remind them, like we do recommend, don't wait until the very last second to submit things. Obviously, websites crash, we all know this. There's been major storms before November 1, like there's just been drama. That if we can avoid and get that stuff in beforehand, that's advisable. And if not, that's okay too, but there may be one straggler here or there that they're waiting on or whatever, and that's fine. But just get it out so it's done, hit submit, make sure it's reviewed and everything's looked at and it's on time by that deadline. When you hit submit, you'll be paying or using a fee waiver when submitting the application. It will not be complete until you do that. They will not let you not do that. And then the essay is submitted as part of the application. So we reminded students, don't make a college-specific essay. Don't write the name of any college in the common application essay, right? Because it's going to every school. So just be mindful of that. Some colleges have what's called supplemental essays, which just means additional essays or short answer questions. So what we told our students this morning is that many of them are utilizing the Common Application. So we said, go into the Common App, add all of your schools, and then just go look and see which schools have supplements and which, maybe there's a whole entire additional essay that they have to write. We said, don't be blindsided at the last minute by something that they didn't even know they had to do. So we said, just go look at it to just make sure you know what you're doing. Because the supplemental essays, even though they're called supplemental, they're still really important too. So just be mindful of what they need to do. Okay. Ms. Hughes is going to take us to the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I am just going to go over some vocab, some housekeeping information, just important things that sort of don't pertain exactly to the 10 steps, but that you may need to know along the way. And a lot of questions come up every year about early decision. Or ED. So this is a type of application policy that students oftentimes will want to do. It's very popular, although they are not required to ED anywhere or choose that. But this is basically should be reserved for the student's number one school, the school that they're like, if I get into this school, I'm absolutely going there. It is sort of a way to show a commitment to that school through the application. And since it is such a serious commitment, there are a couple of extra things that come along with it. And the main one is the ED agreement. So this is an agreement that the student has to sign, the parent has to sign, and the counselor has to sign. Basically that everyone is in agreement that the student will be attending this school if they are accepted there. So in order for us to actually get that ED agreement, it usually comes to us through Naviance. We have to sign it through there as well. And the student has to make sure that they have selected ED as the type of application in Naviance. Otherwise, it won't pop up for us and we won't be able to sign it. So if they know they're EDing somewhere, they have to select that. ED is reserved for one school on the student's list since it is a commitment to that school. However, in recent years, schools have also added something called ED2, which is later on in the year, and typically that is around regular decision deadlines. So depending on how the first round of applications go, or if a student just wasn't really ready to commit to the early decision idea in the fall, they may have the option to do ED2 in the winter as well. So we just ask that students notify us with any changes to these applications. I know all of the other counselors who have spoken have echoed this. We don't necessarily know if a student has changed their mind and decided to apply ED somewhere, or now they no longer want to apply ED. So if they just keep us in the loop, we're able to make sure we have all the appropriate forms signed and all the things that they'll need for that application. Most schools are on Common App at this point, so if a school is on Common App, we would be signing that through Naviance. There are a few schools that either aren't on Common App, or maybe the student is doing that school's particular application. And if that's the case, they may need to print an ED agreement and email it to that school. That's totally fine. We see that from time to time. But the student and parent do need to sign it first before bringing it to us. Then we'll sign it, and then the student can submit it either via email or through the portal, however they have to do it. Okay. And then I know Ms. Kugro talked a lot about self-reported coursework, self-reported grades. As she mentioned, it used to be called the SRAR or the SRAR. It's now STARS. Sounds a lot better now. It's easier to say, so that's exciting. And basically what this form is a form where students will write in their own courses and grades into one place so that the school is not receiving it in the form of a PDF. They may be able to look at it different ways and rework things that they weren't able to do before. So it's on its own website. It's separate, unfortunately, from Common App and Naviance, but we do have it linked on our post-secondary website that Ms. Coviello had shown earlier in the presentation. And also, if a student is applying to a college that requires this, they're going to likely have the link to that either on their website or in their portal. So it's easy to find. And it's pretty similar to the courses and grades section on the Common App. If a student has already completed that, they should be familiar with it. But a really good thing that the STARS form is doing this year, before this year, students had to sit in and actually have a copy of their transcript and type in all of their classes and grades and credits. This year, they're actually able to upload a copy of their transcript, and it will try to pull all the writing on that transcript into the portal, so students essentially just need to cross-check it and make sure that it's accurate. So it's going to save a lot of time on that. And there are a lot of really popular schools that Ridge students apply to that use this form, so lots of students are going to end up seeing it. Rutgers, UW, Penn State, these are some of our most popularly applied to schools, and they do use this form, so lots of students will come in contact with it. Something we mentioned to students earlier is they are going to need this thing called the state student ID. Lots of students get confused. They think it's their Ridge ID number, or they're not sure where to find it. So it is on their transcript. There's a little bubble in the top right corner that has their state student ID in it. And then they also can find it on their transcript, and then I think in Naviance as well. They'll just put that number in there, and then they can upload their transcript and just cross-check that, and hopefully it will take them a little bit less time than it used to. So I know all of us have said this, I'm gonna echo it again. One of the most important things in this process is just making sure that the student is checking every school's admission website throughout the process, making sure that they're giving them exactly what they're looking for and following the directions exactly how they are asking them to do things. And one thing that we mentioned, I know everyone has said this already, but we are here to work with each student individually on anything that they need from us. So a lot of times students want us to read their Common App essay or their supplemental essays or anything along the way that they want us to get eyes on, and that's what we're here to do. So we will do that obviously during the senior meeting, but if their senior meeting is early or things come up after that, we can always make additional meetings to take a look at those things. And I know Ms. Kuguro mentioned the importance of supplemental essays too. So what's next after all of this? Your student hit submit, they submitted the application, they're done with that. One thing that we want to make sure they're doing is checking their emails. We have definitely had colleges who have reached out to us saying, hey, we tried to email the student that such and such thing is missing, and they've never opened any of our emails. We don't want that to happen to anyone, so just make sure that they are checking their email, keeping on top of that, and even checking the portals for the colleges, because sometimes if they haven't received something from a student, they'll put a note in there that they haven't received it yet, and then the student can easily resolve that, usually whether it's sending it again or just giving them some time to check it in. I know we told this to the students this morning. Lots of people feel really nervous or panicked if they see something's missing in their application portal after they've applied. It's unfortunate, but it does happen, and it's usually not any reason to panic. When colleges are receiving hundreds of thousands of copies of test scores or transcripts, sometimes it takes them a while to log that they actually have those things, even if they've been sitting in their queue for a while. So some of the time, students will reach out to a school and say, hey, I see that you don't have my transcript, and they're like, oh, we just hadn't checked it in yet, we do have it. So a lot of times it's a quick email that just resolves those, and if it needs to be sent again, of course, we can always do that too. Something important for seniors to sort of be thinking of as this marking period goes on, Ridge does send first marking period transcripts to colleges automatically unless a student opts out of having those sent. So we will post a form in our Google Classroom where the student could say, I don't want my first marking period grade sent to colleges, and then we won't send it. But the default would be for us to send it. It's totally up to the student. They can also talk to their counselor individually on what would be best for them and their whole profile. But what I will say is a lot of times if a student is applying ED, the college will likely want those grades. It might help them make a decision based on how senior year is going. The whole transcript is obviously much more important, but that could sometimes play a role. If the student's not applying ED, some schools look at them, some schools might not be as concerned with them, so we could talk about that individually too. And then when it comes to mid-year grades, your students will start receiving emails like January 1st that say, we need your mid-year grades, we need to see how semester 1 has gone. Absolutely do not panic. Those are sent automatically from Ridge, so we do not need the student to request them. There is, unfortunately or fortunately, no opting out of them. They are sent automatically as soon as semester 1 comes to an end, and they don't have to do anything on their end. Okay, so I know we already talked about college visits in the media center and the workshops. If you could just remind your students about those if they're sounding like they have questions or things that they might want to know about a specific college, those are just really great resources that we offer here. And then the college fair is coming up in a couple of weeks on October 9th. So if students went last year and they want to pop in there again, or if there are some colleges they just haven't had the chance to visit or get more information on, that's a great place to go. Okay, So we gave this reminder, these reminders to seniors this morning too. Hopefully we don't actually need to give it, but we just want to make sure that everyone gets the message that everything on social media obviously is viewable. Colleges can find things that students post on social media. They will see their email address that they're using for the application, certain things that they're posting on like admitted students forums, all things like that. So we just want to make sure that students are remembering to be appropriate and that anything they post could potentially be seen at some point by an admissions rep. And then as far as financial aid, those forms are not available yet, but when they do come out, colleges tend to have different deadlines based on what their internal deadlines are for those documents. So that's kind of the same thing of like, make sure you're looking at the college's website for when they're expecting those. We also do have a financial aid night later in the fall, so if you had additional questions about those, that's a really great event to come to get some of those answered. And then you can always check our calendar of events. That's where you would find the dates for the financial aid night and all those other events. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it over to Ms. Cahill to give some final thoughts and some perspective on this process. Thank you guys so much.
Good evening. My name is Marguerite Cahill, and when I'm one of the counselors here at Ridge, I was also in your shoes 2 years ago. So I wanted the opportunity to speak with you about the important and influential role you play as parents during the post-secondary process. So now that we've provided you with all of the how-tos for how your student will complete this application process, we want to take a step back and talk about an incredibly important other aspect of college planning, the emotional piece. As I mentioned, my own daughter navigated the college process here at Ridge and graduated with the class of 2024. She is currently a sophomore at University of New Hampshire in their nursing program. So I feel like I have the unique ability to understand this process from both the counselor perspective and the parent perspective. As counselors, we want to acknowledge that you are likely experiencing mixed feelings about this process that could include trepidation, wondering if you've prepared them for these next steps, worrying about whether they'll be happy where they go, and wondering how you can support them in this process, as well as potentially excitement for them about their new adventure. You may find yourself looking at pictures of your child on the first day of kindergarten or other childhood milestones with extreme nostalgia. We want to remind you that your child is likely experiencing a host of feelings as well about applying to college and what their lives will look like after Ridge. In fact, some of their fears or concerns might mirror yours, but they also might not be admitting that they are having any of these thoughts or feelings. As counselors, we understand that this time is filled with a great deal of mixed emotions for both parents and students. In our offices, we watch students exhibit a myriad of feelings, including pure excitement and joy, disappointment, and uncertainty or fear. Applying to college and all that follows by nature presents many unknowns for students. For some of your students, this is actually the first time they've encountered this level of unknown. Since unknowns are unpredictable, this inevitably leaves a lot up to their imagination. While that can be fun, new, and exciting, it can be scary as well. After navigating this myself, I wanted to share a few pieces of unsolicited advice with you. First, I want you to think back to when your child was learning how to feed themselves. Remember what you felt when they reached for the spoon and tried to do it themselves. You were probably super excited and proud that they were working on this milestone, perhaps a little concerned about the mess as they navigated trying to get some of that food in their mouths, and possibly a little sad that your baby was growing up. Right now is a little bit like that time, and the feelings you have may mirror those you had when they were that age. But this is the perfect time to empower your child. If they say they don't know something or how to find it, try not to step in and find out for them. Help them navigate through who or what their resources are and encourage them to utilize those resources. You don't know all the answers either, so teach them how you figure it out. Help them to problem solve for themselves because they will feel so accomplished and able when they are able to do all of these things on their own. Take pride in their ability to do things for themselves rather than focusing on taking care of them and doing those things for them. Just like when they learn to navigate the spoon, they may end up with a little bit of a mess, but ultimately they won't starve. And you may have waves of nostalgia and sadness as you watch them do something important for themselves, but you will also have that feeling of pride as they navigate this process. Second, your child may be overwhelmed at times. You cannot always fix that feeling either. It is okay for them to sit in that feeling for a little bit. Get comfortable with them being uncomfortable. Feel free to commiserate about what a miserable feeling that is, but prevent yourself from trying to take that feeling away from them. You cannot be there to fix everything next year, so this is a great year for them to understand that this feeling is generally fleeting and that sometimes you need to spend a few minutes in it before you get up and get things done. Like me every April when I have to file my taxes. Yes, they are busy. Yes, this is a time of great responsibility for them. No, it is not helpful if you do it for them because unfortunately you may be sending a message inadvertently that you do not think they are capable of doing it themselves. Third, keep in mind that the best forms of support are not necessarily people who know exactly what to say or what to do, but people who make you feel supported. It is like that old adage, it is not what someone said or did, it is how they made you feel that you are most likely to remember. And finally, help them to remember that there is not a right answer in this process or one perfect place. They can likely find happiness in many places. So it is okay if the answer is no, because it simply means that was not their place, at least not for right now, and they can explore another path. Remind them that taking a different path does not mean it's the wrong path. It is quite simply their path to get where they are going. Don't forget that they will likely look to you to see how you respond to those potential disappointments, and they may be worried that you will be upset with them if they are not admitted to a particular school or program. So be mindful of your reactions and your words. When you find yourself feeling nostalgic and thinking about their first day of kindergarten or their first big game or concert, think about what you wanted for them then. You wanted them to have a good experience, to learn, and to grow. Remember that not every day in between those times and now have been filled with all positive things. They have had struggles. You have likely seen them cry because someone hurt their feelings or because they were frustrated or disappointed. You could not fix all those issues then, and you cannot protect them from all of those feelings now. Instead, what you can do is provide a safe space for them to come to you when they need help problem solving, to admit to them that you do not have all of the answers and that navigating the unknowns in life is always hard. During this season in their life, you have a beautiful opportunity to be your child's cheerleader and biggest supporter, and even more importantly, the safe space for them to land no matter what the outcome of this process brings. You can help them to feel that even though they don't know exactly what is going to happen, that it is okay not to know, and that you can help them to learn the tools to ensure that they can navigate all of the unknowns in their life with support because they are not, that they can navigate all of the unknowns in their life because they are capable of working through difficult times, and they are not alone. Please reach out to your child's counselor if you are finding that they are struggling with any portion of this process. It is important for us to know that information so we can best assist them. Remember, your child is looking to you for support, encouragement, understanding, and ultimately approval. You can be the person with whom years later they remember sharing this exciting time. And maybe one day if they are asked to recall a time when someone helped them to navigate uncertainty, they will think of this time in their lives and they will immediately think of you. The passage I'm about to read is called "Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be" by Frank Bruni, and is written by a father to his son Matt. It communicates this simple message: I am proud of you no matter what. We encourage you to echo his sentiments in your own special way to your own child during this time. Our hope is that this passage helps shape your perspective as you navigate the important role you play on this journey to the next chapter in your child's life. Dear Matt, on the night before you receive your first college response, we wanted to let you know that we could not be any prouder of you than we are today. Whether or not you get accepted does not determine how proud we are of everything you have accomplished and the wonderful person you have become. That will not change based on what admissions officers decide about your future. We will celebrate with joy wherever you get accepted, and the happier you are with those responses, the happier we will be. But your worth as a person, a student, and our son is not diminished or influenced in the least by what these colleges have decided. If it does not go your way, you'll take a different route to get where you want. There is not a single college in this country that would not be lucky to have you, and you are capable of succeeding at any of them. We love you as deep as the ocean, as high as the sky, all the way around the world and back again, and to wherever you are headed, Mom and Dad. Please remember, we are here to help support you and your child, to help keep things in perspective, to celebrate the highs, and assist with navigating the lows. We want what you want for them to be happy and successful wherever they go next. We appreciate the time you have taken to come this evening, and we hope to continue to work in partnership with you to support your children as they navigate this exciting time in their lives. Now, because I brought the tears, we're gonna have Mrs. Trainer, who brings the fun.
Okay. All righty. Thank you for that. Okay. So I just want to first thank my amazing colleagues for that very informative presentation. And then I'm going to officially welcome you to the question and answer portion of our presentation. This is always my favorite part because we get to hear from you. But we are going to start with a twist, which means that instead of you asking us questions, I'm going to ask you questions. But don't worry, I see some faces. It is completely voluntary, and we will have some fun. And I know every good game needs an incentive, so there are some prizes, okay? And speaking of prizes, we are very excited, or maybe just me, to unveil our trivia prize box. So our winners tonight get to select their own prize from the prize box, which has some rich gear in it, or we have some college swag that's been given to us from college representatives. So again, the prizes are exciting. Okay, so you might remember this from junior parent presentation. We had so much fun, we wanted to do it again. And I am expecting the same level of energy and participation that we had from junior parent night. Okay? Alrighty, so let's get started. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, trainer, here we go. Alrighty, so our first question, let me get my notes up here too. Oh boy. Okay. During the 24-25 admission cycle, how many common applications were submitted? All right, who's gonna be our first? Oh, okay, Ms. McGivney is gonna come over here. What's our guess?
2.6 million.
Okay, well, thank you for participating. That wasn't the answer I was looking for, but at Trainer Trivia, everybody wins. So you will get a prize. Okay, but thank you. Now we need another guess. You want to guess? Sure. Okay, take a shot. Okay, 8.2 million was the guess. Also not the answer I was looking for, but you do get a prize. Okay, coming back over here. Yes? Oh, yes, 10 million. Yes, that is the correct answer. So you will get it, the prize box will make its way to you. Oh, here we go, Ms. Cahill. Yes, the answer is 10 million. Actually, this is a record. Common App surpassed 10 million applications for the first time. And because I like information and data, I did some more research on this. So, the admission cycle represents a rise in the number of unique applicants. It was about 1.5 million applicants submitting 10 million applications, which is about 6.8 per student. Okay, awesome, we're on to the next round. Okay, winner. Okay, all right, so I think Miss Hughes went over this, so we already, oh wow, everybody, you guys are good. Okay, the question is, how many schools can my student apply to under an early decision plan? Everybody wants the prize box. Okay, I don't even know. You pick, I don't know who to go to.
I feel like there's this hand in the middle shot up, but then again, I was
okay,
going
all right.
So.
Be mad at Ms. Cahill. It wasn't me who picked. Go ahead. Yes, the answer is A, 1. I will add, as Ms. Hughes said, that if you apply early decision and your student is either deferred or denied, they are released from that early decision agreement and can submit another application under ED2, if that school has it. Okay. All right, this is our final question. Okay. All right, let's get back to our amazing Ridge class of 2025. How many total applications did the Ridge class of 2025 submit? Okay, I saw this hand, Ms. McKinney, right up here. Do you want to? Okay, again, great guess. Thank you for participating. You will win something as well. Not the answer I was looking for. I'm going to head up here. Okay, I saw your hand go up. What's your guess? Yep. 5,784. Total applications were submitted by the class of 2025. Just because, like I said, I like more information and more statistics and more data, students from Ridge in the class of 2025 attending 146 different colleges. And the #1 attending college for the class of 2025? Rutgers, yes. Okay, so we have a prize over there. Okay, great. You guys know your stuff. Awesome job at trivia. But now we are going to open it up for you to ask us questions. Again, we're asking for you to just ask general questions. If you have specific questions, just save those for your individual counselor. I have Ms. Cahill up here, Ms. Merview up here, Ms. McGivney, so we can take your questions. Okay, I think we have one up top here. Ms. McGivney's making her way. Okay, I see you up there too. Go ahead. Go ahead, yeah.
Hi. Question. If your student took both the SAT and the ACT, are they allowed to like send just one to one school, send two to another school that I had to pick, or is it like a blanket choice across like all schools they apply to?
So you can send either test score. I guess you can send both. I don't know if most kids would do that, but you can send both. And then within each individual college, the colleges have their own testing policy. So the majority of the colleges super score the SAT, which means they're going to take the highest math and the highest reading regardless of the test date. When you log into the College Board and you go to send the score report of the SAT and you put in the colleges, almost for all the colleges, their policy will pop up. So you read the policy, and then right below it, it will mark for you either the highest reading and math, so then you can see which ones to send. If it's a school that requires you to send all your test scores, then it'll have them all marked. If it's a school that doesn't super score, then it will mark for you the highest test date that has your overall highest score. There are some times when you enter your colleges into the College Board that the message will say, check the individual college. That's not as common. It's almost always there for you, but then you go to the college's website and you see what their policy is. So provided that the college super scores, then you would just send whatever test date has the highest math and reading, and if it's from the same test date, then you're just sending that score. The one thing I'll add to that is it definitely makes kids nervous when a school has a policy that you have to send all of your test scores. Because right now, September, this Saturday, is a new test date. We've never had a September test date for the SAT. And so kids are hesitant to take it because they're like, well, this would be my 5th time. Maybe they took it March, May, June, they took August, and now they're taking it a 5th time. And they're like, well, won't the colleges see that? What if I do worse? They're seeing the trends. And so in my experience, the colleges that require all the test scores are not looking for what makes a student weak. All colleges want to admit students. And then the reasons they don't is if something falls below when it's a test score, right? So they're not looking to see, you took it 5 times, that's too many times, or these are your low scores, but then this is when they're looking at what makes you strong. Because they're also reviewing the student's application in 7 minutes. So all the time that's being put into that application is being reviewed in about 5 to 7 minutes. And with regards to the standardized testing, there's high likelihood that the actual admission officer will never see the full report, because once it's inside and they pull the scores that they want, because that's done either by computer or office staff, then they're not even seeing that score. So that's for the SAT. For the ACT, they also created a couple years ago a SuperScore report. Now, not as many colleges SuperScore the SAT or the ACT. Everybody does pretty much, almost everybody does the SAT. You could probably name a couple of them that don't. But for the ACT, it's a little bit less common, and then the ACT has now recently changed, and they're eliminating the science section. So with all of that, the ACT created a SuperScore report. So when the student logs into the ACT, they will see first their SuperScore report. So it'll show the SuperScored composite, as well as each test state that created it. Right below that, if you were to hit see the SuperScore report, when you click on it, it's going to tell you, we're going to send the SuperScore report, but we're going to send all the test states that make up the SuperScore report. And that's because in that note, the ACT acknowledges not everybody will accept this. So they'll send the full report of each test state that created the SuperScore. So now when the college gets the student's ACT, you're fully covered, right? So you've got the SuperScore if that's what they want. You've got whatever created the SuperScore, and then, again, in the off chance there's a single test state that had, the highest composite, then you would send that as well. So that's a long answer because it varies college to college, which, going back to what my colleague said, that's why you got to check each individual website. Because unfortunately, unless my colleagues know of one, I do not know of a website that we can direct you to where it's all listed. Like, you can just put in the school and then it'll tell you what the policy is. Because policies, change all through the summer and even as late as like August. So you just have to confirm everything in the college website.
So many hands.
How many safety schools do you recommend applying to?
So much shorter. So how many safety schools do I recommend students apply to? Okay, that's not like necessarily a super easy question to answer because I always want to say to kids, like, it depends on how safe, right? It depends on what major you're applying for. It depends on whether you're like an out-of-state student and it's a state school that it takes predominantly in-state students. So I often with students will look at their individual list to determine whether I think their list is strong enough in terms of like how many safety schools. I would say I used to always say 2. I have in the last probably 5 years amended that to say 2 to 3. But again, it would really depend on a student's profile, how safe those schools are, the trends that we've seen over the last few years with that particular school, anything that we've sort of heard about their yield from last year. So there's a lot of information that you can't necessarily see in Naviance. Naviance graphs are fantastic. I don't want to take away from the idea that data can be helpful. But one of the things that we've experienced as counselors is you can see a very immediate shift for a school, and that plays a huge role in whether that school could now be a safety or not. So for example, like one of the schools that sticks out to me is University of Tennessee. A few years ago, they came up with like really kind of a policy that was like, we're not accepting enough in-state students and we really need to shift our policy to definitely taking more in-state and being much more particular with out-of-state. At the same time, they got a lot more out-of-state applicants. So the trend of getting more out-of-state applicants plus the shift in their philosophy made an enormous impact in their admissions over the last few years. You wouldn't have seen it on that first year, but if you heard it, then you would know, like, oh, you've got to be really careful if UT is one of your safety schools because it might not actually be safe this year. So the reason that that's a hard question to answer is that it might be specific to the schools that are on the list. It might be sort of specific to that student and their profile. So I would really encourage your student, if they're worried about how many schools they have in a particular category, to definitely speak with their counselor about, what our opinions are about how safe the schools are, whether the list is, balanced, which we typically do during the senior meeting anyway.
Next question.
I have 2 questions actually. One is about class rank, whether colleges look at class rank, and if so, where to find it, because I don't think I've seen it on the transcript. That's one. And the second one is if your student needs to be out for a college visit, like out of school for the day for a college visit, is that an excused absence or something else? That's a great question, actually, about the rank. So Ridge doesn't rank, which is why you didn't see it on the transcript. So it's not something that's part of information that we send. We just don't do it. And the other good question about the college visits. So students are allowed 3 excused visits to attend college visits. So now it could be a college visit. As you get toward the end of the year, a lot of students will use that for their freshman orientation if it happens to still be during the school day and while school is going on. So all you have to do is have some kind of confirmation of the visit, and you submit that to the attendance office, and then it can be marked in Genesis as a excuse for a college visit.
Okay. I know you have a question here.
You had said on the Common App that you kind of click off all the colleges that you want to submit to and then submit all at once. Are all of the colleges able to see the other colleges that you've applied to, and is that taken into consideration in any way?
Okay, so I feel like you might be adding Naviance and the Common App together when you're thinking about checking off all the boxes. So checking off all the boxes is when you request your transcripts on Naviance. It's just as simple as checking off boxes. When you're applying on the Common Application, you actually have to submit each school separately. So what you will do is you fill out this main Common App tab, and then you have another tab that's the list of all of your schools. And then when students have finished the supplemental portion of that application, so all the questions they have to answer, do I want to live on campus? Am I an in-state student? All those kind of things. When they get to the end, there's a button that says review and submit. Once they get to that, they're actually able to see what their application looks like, make sure there's no typos, that kind of thing. And then they would pay individually for that particular application or use a fee waiver if they have one, and then they would submit. When they submit that application, it's like a snapshot of the Common App, meaning that that is what they're submitting the Common App to look like at that particular given moment in time. If they were to make updates or changes, every school that they apply to subsequently would see those updates or changes, but the Common App's not a moving machine. Like, it only shows you a snapshot at the time that you are applying. So you can't apply to numerous colleges at exactly the same time. You would have to go through and do each one as a separate application. I feel like there was a second part of your question that I have now talked myself into forgetting. That was the second part of your question. Can the colleges see the other schools to which you're applying? No. What is interesting is there are some schools out there that actually ask you what other schools you're applying to. I don't know how many of them still exist and still ask that question. It really makes kids like hysterical. They're like so afraid to answer that question. The reason they are doing that, at least from what we know or what they're willing to tell us, is to figure out what their overlaps are. Meaning, I am University of South Carolina. I want to know, if you're applying to me, what other places are you also looking at? Because they use that as a gauge to determine kind of like what their sister schools are in terms of like where students are also interested if they're applying there. By the way, I don't mean to insinuate that that school asked that question, because I don't think they do. But my point is that that's a question that if they were asking it, that's what they'd be using that data for, is to kind of figure out what other places students may have been interested in.
Okay, we have a question.
I was just wondering if there was going to be anything other than for college post-graduation, like, are there going to be any trade schools or art schools present when it's college fair day, or is there going to be a presentation? So if you have a student that might not want to go to college, like...
Absolutely, yes. At the college fair, there are a multitude of schools that are represented at the fair. We also can talk individually with each student about what that plan might look like. We've all had students in the past who have taken a route that's not the traditional even the 2-year school route or the 4-year school route. I had a student last year who is now doing a gap year program this year at a national outdoor leader school in Patagonia. So we can work through each student and kind of what they're looking for. What was not available for this presentation but is coming is that, similar to the college rep visits, where we have a rep from the college come in and talk to students about that specific college, we also run something called career rep visits. So we started that last year. So that's where a professional comes in and talks about what they do in their day-to-day. And we have a whole host of
different career options for students to hear about.
You know, one thing just to add is that we told all of our students in our meetings with them that every student is having an individual senior meeting regardless of what their plans are for next year. Some of them might not even be exactly sure about what they want to do after high school. So whatever their post-secondary plans are, if it's a gap year, if it's military, if it's 2-year school, 4-year school, work, we are here to support your student in whatever path they choose. We are even running a workshop on our workshop list for students that it's just post-secondary planning for whatever your planning is. So if your student is unsure about a 4-year school or what they want to do, they're welcome to attend our post-secondary planning workshop where we will talk with students about different options and how we can best support them.
And then just to add, I also am the military liaison here, so I run programs throughout the year for students who are listed or interested in enlisting or going the ROTC route or the service academies.
Okay, great question, thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Over here, yes.
Okay.
I got about 10 questions, so I'll keep it short. I'll ask one. I'll begin with one. You talked about something, I missed it. You said something about AP scores won't be submitted. Can you elaborate what that means?
Okay, so what we were talking about is that AP scores are typically not part of the admissions process. It doesn't mean that no students ever submit them during the admissions process. It just simply means that most schools are not using AP scores during the application process because not every student submits them. So they're not a universal item that they can compare one student to another. What they're extremely important for is once your student has decided where they're going to go, they would then send their official AP score report to the school to which they are attending to determine what they can receive credit for from that particular school. So I usually say to students, like, if you want to send them because you feel like they're like icing for you, they're good, why wouldn't I send them? You can definitely do that. We just can't tell you that they're actually going to necessarily make a difference unless that particular school has said that they will look at AP scores during the admissions process, which, like we said, it's fairly unusual just simply because it's not a standard to which they can compare multiple students. Yeah, so I'm going to repeat that question because you didn't have the mic, so I want to make sure everybody hears what I'm answering. So the follow-up to that was like, don't colleges look for the rigor of AP classes, for example? Yes, but that's on your transcript. So the rigor of the coursework is shown on the transcript and with the grades. The actual AP scores, again, are not necessarily something, and by the way, I'm using US schools when I'm making these proclamations. To be honest with you, if you were looking at a UK school, sometimes UK schools only use AP scores. They do not use grades on a transcript. So I want to be clear that I'm talking about US schools when I say that.
And just to add one thing to that, so there's a difference between self-reporting on the Common App and sending your scores. So no one wants you to send your AP scores. No college is looking for you to send the score. You have to pay for that. You would only send the score once you know where the student's matriculating to get the credit. On the Common App, under the testing section, you have the option to self-report your AP scores. And so if your scores match your grade or you outperformed on the test than you did in the class, then you would self-report. But I wouldn't have a student pay to send their scores. So the guideline is an A in the class is a 5 on the exam, a B is a 4, a C is a 3. Here at Ridge, teaching is really rigorous. So sometimes kids are fighting, working their tails off to get a B, and then they crush the exam and get a 5. You'd self-report that because you've mastered the content in the eyes of the College Board and the standards of the colleges. So, and the colleges know our teaching is rigorous, right? So they know this. That's why our kids do so well in terms of placements and such. So again, you can self-report, but if you get an A in the class and a 3 on the exam, you wouldn't want to self-report that because now you're offering a data point that's giving them a reason to call and question your grade. And more importantly, the teaching that went on. Because how did you get an A in the class if you didn't master the content? Again, that is not a trend we really see here at Ridge. It's either matched or our kids outperform, right? Because the teaching is such a high level.
Okay, question over here.
there any admissions benefit to the dual enrollment? Like, does that, like, that thing just came out about English, that they can dual enroll, like, is that of benefit admissions-wise, or is that just more after they're accepted?
I mean, it depends on the schools, and AP classes for credit for the most selective colleges in the country don't always yield credit, they yield placement. And then dual enrollment, again, it's going to be up to the college where the student is going if they're going to accept the credit from that college. Yeah, it's a new course code, and then it's also how the student would input it into the Common App. So it's a new course code. So if we register them in the code, then it would reflect on the transcript, and then the student would report it in their senior year course section. But it's not all colleges are taking dual enrollment credit from every college that you might do it. So, and then like I said, even at, again, AP classes, most selective schools, they're not always taking credit, they're giving you placement. So it just varies school to school, and then, where the student ends up matriculating.
I think we have time for just maybe like 2 more questions. That one over here.
So I had a question about the letters of recommendation. If it's not from a teacher, if it's from outside, how does that waiver play into it? And does the student then upload it themselves, or does the outside person, coach, whatever, have to send it directly?
So in terms of other letters, we talked to your students about this today when we had our presentation. Again, we send all of our teacher letters and counselor letters through Naviance. The only way that Common App provides students as a mechanism to send other letters is to add them as an other recommender on Common App. Now, some students may have chosen to have their recommender email a letter of recommendation on their behalf to a college. Not all colleges will take letters of recommendation that way. Not all colleges will take other letters in general. So you really have to make sure that your student has checked the policy for the schools to which they're applying to see whether they will take a letter from a coach, a letter from an employer, a letter from a community member. So it's important to know if you can send it at all. But again, the mechanism to do that would be on Common App, and you would add them as an other recommender. Some schools don't have the capacity to do that on Common App, so if your child's not seeing that option, it's because they don't allow it. Typically, if they don't allow it on Common App, it means they don't really want it emailed or mailed or anything either. I will tell you, if a school allows an other recommender, the Common App email that the recommender gets sometimes goes to spam. So if I were your student, I would say to their other recommender, I've gone ahead and added you to Common App. Please let me know if you don't receive an invitation to provide a letter of recommendation on my behalf, because sometimes they go disappearing into spam. So it's important for them to monitor whether the other recommender has received it.
Okay, we have a question right here.
If a student is applying to schools that are test optional but decides to take the SAT anyway, is there any scenario where that could hurt the application if the score is not the best that it could be? Is there any way to just, should the student just not put themselves through that to take the SAT if it's going to be a test optional school?
Yeah, so if the student has already decided they're going to apply test optional, they don't need to take the test. So that would be like the emotional, stress that they may be going through. If you want to apply test optional, you take the test, the college won't see the score unless the student either puts it on the application or sends it to the college. And then once you've applied test optional, every college has a different policy. Previously, they would say you can't change it. Now they'll say, some schools will say, well, you could contact us to make a request to change it. But again, once you've applied test optional, they're not seeing that score unless you choose to send it. But if you've worked with your counselor and you're looking at your early benchmarks, your PSAT score, maybe you took a couple of SATs, you're looking at what are the mid 50% ranges of my colleges, where does my score fall, what does the tutor say, where do I think I can get it, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to get it to that mid 50% and it doesn't matter how many times I take it and what's going to go on to even try, then you call it. And there are kids who call it. At this point, they could be calling it. We usually would encourage most kids to be taking it and trying it through the spring. But plenty of kids call it if they're like, I'm just not going to apply with my test scores.
Okay. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I hope that you found it to be informative and fun, and that you have a clear picture of what the next few months will look like for your student. Again, we are here to support you and your student no matter what their path is next year. So please reach out to us, encourage your student to come see us. And if you have a moment, you can scan our QR code to provide some feedback on this presentation. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Take care.